Well, it's a great pleasure to see so many people here for what I think is an extremely important event. You know, when you look at what's happening across the world, even if you were just observing from time to time, you can see that the number of serious international crises and the complexity of those crises is growing and changing, and that the impact on parts of the world is becoming more and more severe, from Syria to the Philippines, Central African Republic, to events in Thailand. Responding to crises has to be high on the agenda of everyone who has responsibility for foreign and security policy at any given moment. It's certainly been very high on my agenda. In fact, the very first major challenge after I took office was the terrible earthquake in Haiti. It's also, Agostino, where I met you. Agostino was operating in Haiti in the best demonstration I've ever seen of bringing together all of the different people who need to engage in any form of crisis, from NGOs who are providing education or water or food or tents, through to the military who were rebuilding schools, moving earth, moving rubble, all under the leadership of one man. And I determined on that day that one way or another I was going to steal him from the clutches of Italy and bring him here so that we could have these kind of discussions and these kind of events. And I will remain forever grateful to you for taking on what has been an extraordinary challenge, but a challenge that only you, in my view, could have succeeded in, as you have. And you helped me translate, in a sense, all of those early experiences into the architecture for the External Action Service. Not finished yet, but certainly work in progress with the creation of the Directorate of Crisis Response and Operational Coordination, and of course, your arrival as its first managing director. It seemed to me, it was really clear that if we have an interconnected world, there is no major crisis anywhere that doesn't have repercussions everywhere. And certainly there is no crisis that does not affect the European Union and our worldwide network of political and economic partnerships. The European Union has a stake in international trade and security, citizens active all over the world at any given moment. So our procedures, our structures need to be able to react and to respond to crises in the fastest and most efficient and most joined up way possible. But you know, we're also very conscious that the European Union is only one element of the answer to the challenges that are posed by any international crisis. Handling a complex situation will always need to be an effort of the international community at large. It will require working in close partnership, pooling our means and coordinating our efforts. So it's fantastic that today's and tomorrow's event will be looking at exactly that. How do we increase the coordination and effectiveness in crisis response? How do we network, partner, pool our resources more efficiently? Most of the work that I've ever done on tackling our response to crisis, I've done in partnership with others, and I'm thrilled that so many of those partners are actually participating here today. I think our international cooperation has gone from strength to strength, so it was wonderful to have the chance to inaugurate the League of Arab States Crisis Room a year ago. And when I was in Asia, to be able to talk about establishing the Regional Centre of Information Sharing and Early Warning Systems for those emergency situations, working with ASEAN and supporting ASEAN in their Centre for Humanitarian Response. It was wonderful to visit them and to see the office that we have in ASEAN being created. I was also very pleased when I led the EU-Myanmar Task Force a few weeks ago. The progress that we're doing in creating a state-of-the-art crisis response centre. Agostino, you were there doing it for real in front of me, making sure that these very effective people, and you were very complimentary about the incredible professionalism and quality of the staff, but being able to work together to deal with and to operate in a way that was going to support response to crises. I know that there are delegations here from both. I want to say how much we welcome your participation and how much we believe as you develop your work, we will have the opportunity to learn from you. When you look at the challenges that we have in our time, climate change, terrorism, extremism, the natural and created crises of the 21st century, there's no question that we have to tackle these through our cooperation with our partners. So the fundamental principle that we've established in the European Union in crisis response is that this is work to be done always in partnership with others. We know too that dealing with a crisis, reaction time can be of vital importance. And again, I know that today you will be looking to address those questions. How can we improve the early warning capabilities that we have? How do we best coordinate our political and our operational reactions? How do we make sure we have the best access to the best information? And how do we share that information more effectively across organisations, across the world? I also think it merits some reflections. How do we develop a structure that makes sure that we learn from the best practice that all of us have developed and therefore can make the best use of each other's experiences? Too often, experiences locked in an institution or even sometimes in a handful of individuals. We have to find better and smarter ways of sharing the best practice and the knowledge so that we can respond quicker and more effectively. We need to make sure too that we've got the complementary qualities of civilian staff and diplomats and military strategists, putting them together to make the best possible use, mutually reinforcing each other. I go back to Haiti briefly, watching the way the military moved to provide hospital ships, surgeons able to operate in difficult conditions, machinery to be able to move earth and rubble, but also to use naval resources to get round the island. Remember, the roads were not passable for many days after the earthquake. Each time we face some kind of crisis, we have to look across the spectrum, not, by the way, to underestimate the importance of humanitarian aid and support being seen as precisely that and not mixed up in the political and the military, but working alongside and working in a coordinated way. I think that's going to be of enormous importance as you think through how to make that effective in the course of these 2 days. And the idea too, and in a sense the title of the conference, building a global network of crises rooms. I think that's really worth exploring, because if we can find ways to link these different places through state-of-the-art technologies, pooling expertise and strengths to be able to mutually reinforce early warning and crisis management capabilities, I think that will have been a very worthwhile use of your time, which is always precious, I know. We have to work for greater convergence of our long-term strategies to make sure that each of the different ways in which we operate across the world plays its part in contributing to long-term security and prosperity in any country or region. Crisis management and humanitarian aid cannot substitute for strategic vision and long-term action. They're very important, but too often they can only deal with the symptoms, whereas we need to think strategically about tackling the underlying causes. So defining that vision, focusing on crisis prevention, mobilizing different strengths and capacities, and working in partnership. These are the principles that I would argue lie at the very heart of our policies towards conflict and crisis. We sometimes call this comprehensive approach. It means simply bringing together all of the different policies, instruments, whatever you wish to call them, ways of operating in the world for a common purpose. And the common purpose is to try and ensure that you tackle issues and problems before they become the crises that can so easily devour resources and create havoc and chaos for so many people across the world. So this approach is built on the conviction that to be effective, we need to join our forces, pool our assets, those of the External Action Service, the Commission and Member States, of course, in the European Union, but complemented by the strong partnerships across the world, as I've said, represented by so many people here today. I wish you a very successful time here. I'm sorry I can't stay with you, I never can. I always have to go and do something else, but I know that this will be a really important 2 days as we seek to develop further and further how we respond effectively, how we work together strategically, and how we help to support people all across the world, that if a crisis should happen, we are there to help and we're there fast. Thank you.